making it for the home stretch. Ocon, she has taken it easy from start to finish. It's a battle for the second position, but it's Ocon all the way. It's Ocon all the way. And Nigeria picks the first spot. Grace Aduntira comes in third for Ghana. And Burkina Faso's Sibiri in second position. Comfortable run by Ocon. No stress, no hustle, no fuss. Gentle strides, increasing her speed in the bend, maintaining her momentum during the back straight, and then picking up again during the bend, making it difficult for Grace Aduntira in your shot to catch up with her. Congratulations to the Nigerian. Again, first spot in the tracks. They went off pretty well. Aduntira gradually got into her stride, and then she decided to start climbing. But at that time, Ocon had taken off, and then she had the momentum speed during the back straight. Aduntira again closing in on the two athletes in front of her, having the advantage at the stage that we see the Sierra Leonean, the Senegalese all struggling in their bid to get to her. But look at Ocon. Gracefully, she took that bend again. And at this stage, Aduntira had to battle to maintain a certain level of speed through the bend. And by the time she hit the back straight, Ocon was long gone. Picking up nicely, and Ocon knew clearly that there was no challenger at the stage, so all she had to do was just run through the race with constant speed. And Aduntira had to battle to claw back some pride. Tried as she did, it was obvious that the race had left her. So Ocon came in nicely, Sita Sibiri, and then Grace Aduntira and the rest followed in that order. First 400 meters done and dusted. Let's go to heat 2. Heat 2 of the women's 400-meter hurdles. Coming up, Nigeria, La Côte d'Ivoire, Senegal, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Togo, and Sierra Leone. These are the countries expected to line up and go under the starters' orders. Good race run in the first heat, 400 meters. The Nigerians picked it up. There's Ghana's interest, Bridget Annan. And we're taking a look at some of these athletes, fast in numbers. But as to whether they can make it in the race, that's Kla in your shot. So Nigeria's Esther Joseph runs in lane 2. Angie Elia Kla from La Côte d'Ivoire in 3. Kuri Diagne of Senegal in 4. Awa Zongo of Burkina Faso in 5. Bridget Annan of Ghana in 6. Bachasi Julien from Togo in 7. And Kamara Isatu in lane 8. There's Bridget Annan. She's been running impressively, Bridget Annan, and she should be able to match whatever standards this race brings. That's Joseph Esther of Nigeria. La Côte d'Ivoire have Kla Dawa Angie Elia. Kuri Diagne from Senegal will also pose a threat in this race. Ghana's Bridget Annan there in your shot. Bachasi Julian from Togo in lane 7. Looks like Kamara from Sierra Leone is a non-starter in this race. So once again, we bring you the lanes. Nigeria in 1, in 2, I beg your pardon. La Côte d'Ivoire in 3, Senegal in 4, Burkina Faso in 5. Ghana is in lane 6, Togo in 7, and that's the lineup. Athletes waiting for the starters' orders to get onto their marks. Joseph Esther should have a smooth turn in the bend and then hit the back straight. Bridget Annan would have to run her best to keep up. Senegal's Kuri Diagne, of course, will have the Nigerian as her target.
On your mark.
It's action time now as athletes get onto their marks. Lane 6, Bridget Annan. We're good to go. First time of asking. Bridget Annan took a little bit of a stutter, but the Nigerians have closed in on the bend already. Esther Joseph, oh, she's streaking straight into the lead. Esther Joseph after the first bend. They're in the back straight now. Bridget Annan is still in contention as she leads the pack, but the Nigerian overtakes her, and it's going to be a battle between Nigeria and Ghana at this stage. Bridget Annan still holding on there. She tries to double up in terms of her speed, but again, Joseph Esther maintaining that momentum she started the race with. She gets into the home stretch, and it's Nigeria through and through. Nigeria in a very, very clear lead. Is Joseph Esther streaming to the end of the line, picking up first spot in the second heat, and Bridget Annan does well to maintain her second position, and the rest follow in that order. What a race! 400 meters. It is known as the killer race. A race for the men where once upon a time the world record was set at altitude under 43 seconds. It's been a strong, tough race there. Kuri Diagne out of it. She came in third. So again, we run you through the race, and this was the beginning. There you see a little bit of a stutter from Bridget Annan in lane 6. But when they hit the back straight, she got into her stride, she got into her momentum. But look at Esther Joseph. She had already closed in on the first, and she had overtaken Esther even before the second bend. And this is where they hit the home straight, and it was all Joseph Esther. Constant pace, not putting herself under any pressure. And there Joseph Esther crosses the line. Bridget Annan comes in a distant second. It will be a tough battle when the lineup is arranged for the final for 400 meters women. So we are done and dusted with the women. And the men would also come on and show what they're made of. It's now the turn of the men for 400 meters. And this is the first heat of the morning. Nigeria in 2. La Côte d'Ivoire in 3. Burkina Faso in 4. Sierra Leone in 5. Ghana in 6. Senegal in 7. Liberia in 8. Sikiru Adeyemi saw in your shot a while ago, and there's the Ghanaian. Israel Anane Dome, Côte d'Ivoire are also in there with Kansai Bakari. They will compete and battle for supremacy. Tough race. This is definitely going to be. There's the Senegalese Haji Malik. And let's see how the men would fare in the first heat of the 400 meters. The morning session will be coming to an end in a bit. We will have the 4x100 meters men heats to virtually wrap up the morning session. Sikiru Adeyemi. He's got upper strength, he's got the physique, and hoping that his starting from lane 2 would help him, give him a fair advantage of the men in front of him. And again, Israel Anane Dome will have to run very fast. So that's Adeyemi Sikiru into Kansai Bakari from La Côte d'Ivoire in 3. Burkina Faso will have Sawadogo Bienvenue representing. Then from Sierra Leone comes Mohamed Joe. Six has Ghana's Israel Anane Dome and receives the applause. Somari Haji from Senegal. A lot will be expected from him as well. Whilst Liberia's Kamara Musa ends the pack.
On your mark.
So with the introductions out of the way, athletes get on their marks. They've all got a very good start, and away they go. The Senegalese has started off pretty well and fast. El Haji is still going through. It's a careful build-up from the rear. We're now seeing Adeyemi Sikiru in the picture. Ghana's Israel is also going steady as they hit the second bend. And it looks like the Senegalese would want to maintain the speed he started with, but he's being hotly chased by Ghana's Israel Anane. And now they hit the home straight, and it's Nigeria who take over from now. Sikiru Adeyemi It will be a comfortable finish for him. Nigeria getting first, Senegal getting third. Looks like Burkina Faso came in second. 1, 2, 3, done and dusted. That's the winner, Adeyemi Sikiru. Quick handshake from El Haji Malik. So they got off very, very well with the careful strides as they took the first bend. The Senegalese had then torn off on the far side and heading into the home straight as the leader of the pack. Israel came in close, and this was the opportunity Adeyemi was waiting for. Into the second bend, look at him pick up, double up the pace, pick up the strides, going past the Ivorian. The Beninois bringing up the rear, but by the time they finished the bend, it was all done and dusted for Nigeria's Sikiru Adeyemi. And now he had to allow the arms to do a lot of the power fisting. Power throwing coming through there, comfortably running to victory. The Senegalese showed that he had a lot of power and strength to come back. He made it all the way to the second position, pipping the Burkinabe athlete to the line. So winner in the heat, Sikiru Adeyemi takes first position, and he did that without any problems. Let's now move on to heat 2. Heat number 2, men's 400 meters. In this race, we are going to have Senegal, La Côte d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, Nigeria, Liberia, and Benin. Two Anglophone-speaking countries in there, Nigeria and Liberia. 400 meters, heat 2. No Ghanaian interest in this race, but we are going to see a lot of power play between La Côte d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, Senegal, and Nigeria.
After event, you ran the This is the time. This is the time to educate
Athletes, wish you all the best.
me.
400 meters heat 2, and the athletes will get into their marks in just a couple of seconds. It also promises to be an exciting race. The Senegalese are in there, the Ivorians are in there, the Ghanaians are in there, the Nigerians are also in there. And then it looks like the Liberians are in there as well. So that's the Nigerian. Looking forward to a race that will show the stubbornness and the character of these men. It takes a lot of heart. 400 meters. Still to come for the morning session, we've got the 4 by 100 meters for men. And that would wrap up the morning session. We will come your way again in the afternoon with the afternoon events, including the opening ceremony. The athletes wait patiently for the starter to give his orders, and officials are also on standby, ready for the race. Meanwhile, on the field, we have a field event ongoing, which is the shot put. And these are two gentlemen. They will do a lot of battle. It's a Ghana-Nigeria affair. Anywhere, anytime. Still a little bit of a stutter in the start of the 400 meters for men. There's the athlete from Benin. Jules Weiger is his name. And he's hoping also to make Benin proud.
Hello? On your mark.
Looks like the starter is ready now. Athletes have been asked to get to their marks. Nigeria interest in this race. And right behind the Nigerian is the Ghanaian. They're set and they're off. 400-meter men, the Nigerian has torn off pretty fast and well. Ifeanyi is still moving. Steadily he catches up with their leader in just 2 or 3 bursts and then overtakes them all as he puts the pressure on the others to follow suit. Strong run as the Beninois makes the bend. So does the Liberian. Ghana also coming in thick and fast. But to the home stretch now. And once again, just like we saw in the first heat, is Nigeria all the way. Ojele Ifeanyi, comfortable win for him. Tough race, they need to catch their breath. But good running by the Nigerian Ifeanyi. He got off pretty fast when the gun went off and followed through and through with a lot of determination, with a lot of speed, with a lot of strength. And the upper strength finally made a mark in that regard. Comfortable race, comfortable win for the Nigerians. Ifeanyi walks away very tired. Face looks familiar though. Participated in the Africa Games. Also hosted here in Ghana. So they all went off pretty well. But the Nigerian Ifeanyi just burst straight into the bend, rounding up the man in front of him from Burkina Faso, catching up with the Beninois, and then also taking away Toma Jonathan, the Liberian. Into the bend. It was all power, it was all strength, it was all stride. A very calculated run by the Nigerian, and the others struggling to follow. But by the time he had hit the home straight, it was clear that they were going through and through. Aiming to cross the finishing line all alone, and did very well in that regard. So Nigeria 1 and 2 comfortable enough as they will move on to the next stage of the 400-meter event. But on the field now, we've got the shot put for men ongoing. Shot put for men. I'm not too sure whether he would judge that himself as one of the best throws he could make. This is the shot put for the decathletes. And there you got Ghana's Abdul Swabulu in the jersey 1-3-4. Just threw the ball in front of him. Côte d'Ivoire have an opportunity to show how it's done. Jersey number 215 Koumoué. Koumoué does a better throw. Koumoué Kwasi Mohamed from La Côte d'Ivoire. He nods his head. He believes that it was a good throw. And so it will continue. You now have the Beninois to also show what he can do. Mariano Ajagbodu. Mariano Ajagbodu getting ready to effect his throw. Oh, he also did quite well. He got the white flag, but he's not too happy with the technique and its outcome. Dug deep, and then the launch. Decathlon short putt throw. Abdul Swabulu representing Ghana, Kwasi Kumwe representing La Côte d'Ivoire, Mariano Ajagbodu representing Benin, and Serge Armand Diasso representing La Côte d'Ivoire. Côte d'Ivoire have 2 athletes in there, and these 4 have battled in the 100 meters. They have also done battle in the long jump. They are now doing battle in the short putt.
Money. I'll tell you a few.
Another opportunity for another throw. Technique quite unique. Not the best of lifts, but does well. He definitely will get points for that. And very soon it will be the turn of the Ghanaian. He's not been doing too good with the throws. He might probably get another opportunity after the throw from the Beninois. That's a very good throw. That's a very good throw from the Beninois. And again, only 4 athletes competing in the decathlon. The lift was good. And the distance was quite impressive as well, at least better than the last one. Thank you very much. If you've just joined us, we're bringing you a live transmission from the University of Ghana Sports Stadium. Ongoing Confederation of African Athletics for Africa Region 2 Seniors Championship. These athletes battling for pride and honor, and also possibility of an onward march from here into the Olympic Games in Paris. Marker goes down quickly. And whilst this goes on, per the schedule we will have the 4x100 meters. The athletes will be getting ready to join us, and that will be rounding up the morning series, the 4x100 meters for men. And been fortunate enough to be joined in the box by a gentleman who's followed athletics for a while. He was one of the main characters for the Africa Games. He brought us up to speed with everything that happened here at the University of Ghana Sports Stadium, the Athletics Oval as we used to call it. And Kwame Drimo Ajiman will also be giving us insights into some of the quality in terms of the athletes we saw and some of the countries and the strides they've made in terms of churning out some very good athletes, especially for both track and field. He was basically with the athletics team, and so from start to finish he witnessed some of the highs, the lows, the quality that we've seen. Kwame, it's good to have you here. Thank you very much.
Prince, thanks for having me. Prince, thanks for having me.
Yes. It's just day one of this championship, Seniors Championship Region 2 for the Confederation of African Athletics. Teams have come from near and far. The Burkinabe team is here, the Ivorians are here, the Ghanaians are here, the Nigerians are here, the Liberians are here. You know, and so we have seen some rich competition. Like I said, it's just day one. Most of the events we have seen have been the heats events, and so we are building up gradually towards a crescendo. But from a distance, give us your insight into all this.
Well, Prince, thank you. Some of these athletes we saw just about 2 months ago, a little under 2 months, if my memory serves me right. We saw them compete at a very high level, hoping to qualify for a place in Paris. And that's the motivation for a lot of these athletes. It's not just about coming here to represent their nation. It's so difficult to qualify for the Olympic Games these days. Now, gone are the days where every country had, if you like, a slot, literally, for you to present an athlete for a particular sport and discipline or otherwise. These days, the numbers are so many. There are over 200 countries. So if everyone is going to be bringing in a slot, then you can imagine how many heats they would have to undergo before they progress to various stages of these events. So at this point, you have to qualify. And for these athletes, having failed to qualify at the African Games just about 2 months ago, this is probably one of their final opportunities to get to qualify. So I see quite a number of these athletes who I saw just about 2 months ago. These are the heats. You don't expect them to be putting in all the works, but I'm sure once we get to the finals, we should be seeing a lot more from these athletes.
Obviously the heats, as you rightly said, but would you say that justifiably the quality is hovering around the same levels you saw from the Africa Games?
Again, one of the things that you see with athletics, it's not like football where the results, you have to get results and progress at every stage. With the athletics, you need to make a certain qualifying mark to progress to another stage of the competition. So for example, let's say the current world record for the men's 100 meters is 9.58 by Usain Bolt. In the heats, he can make 10 point something. But once we get to the final, which is the business end of the sport, then they go in with absolutely everything. So for the heats, you're not likely to see much in terms of athletes making a certain qualifying time and all of that. But once they get to the final of their various individual events, then they know that they have to go for the kill. So with the heats and with the times I'm seeing, yeah, they look fairly okay. I look forward to what the times will make, because beyond the final, you don't have any other opportunity again. That is if you have ambitions of going to France, of course. So I would want to see a lot more with respect to the finals, which are coming up later today and later tomorrow as well.
Lots to look out for. Viewers, do stay with us. It's 2 days of athletics action from the University of Ghana Sports Stadium, and we definitely will be bringing you up to speed with everything you need to know from this competition. Again, we've seen the rivalry from a very early start between Nigeria and Ghana. It has almost always been there and done that. We've also seen some quality from other countries, maybe notably Senegal, who have also made some strides. But again, is the energy also buttressed by the fact that athletes would want to battle among themselves, between themselves too, and also lay claim to a certain level of superiority?
Of course, and that's what sports is about these days. You're not just competing, but you're trying to get superiority over your opponent as well in any way or form. And again, these guys know that this is pretty much an individual sport, or most of these sporting disciplines are pretty much individual sporting disciplines. So for them to get to the highest pinnacle of their disciplines, they need to consistently perform at a very high level. So over the years, you'd have seen all kinds of athletes perform at all kinds of events, but once we get to, for example, like the final of events, friendships are cast aside. Some school together, some have known each other on the track for many years, but once we get out there, it's business, and you've got to get the business done. So when they get there, you would see the rivalries, you would see how intense they get. I recall at the African Games, for example, where the Nigerians beat us in both the men's 4x100 ladies and men as well. In the men, it was only just, but for a baton change here and there, we could have possibly stolen it. But for the ladies, I mean, they were just class. They were way better than our team. And I'm sure, again, these platforms are opportunities to learn. When you test yourself against the very best, then you can know how well you're progressing.
Okay.
But if you're always beating the also runs, you don't really seem to improve, in my opinion.
Talking about the very best, I want to ask, if we can, to take a sneak preview into the levels we saw at the Africa Championship vis-a-vis what pertains on the world circuit, on the European circuit. Are we too far from there, if you understand what I mean?
Well, far, yes and no. These days we are trying. I mean, gone are the days where African athletes barely had a looking. If you take various sporting disciplines, for example, you can recall off your head African athletes who excelled for a very long time. So, I mean, first off, if you take the sprints, you can mention Frankie Fredericks, who competed at a very high level with Americans and Jamaicans for many years, winning silver medal at the Olympics in '92, winning silver medals at the Olympics in '96 in Atlanta, winning the World Championship in Stuttgart in 1993, I recall, and doing very well at various Commonwealth Games, winning Commonwealth Games medal in 1994 in Canada. You can mention the Zambian Samuel Matete, and then in the long distances, of course, I mean, that's been our space pretty much. The Moroccans, Hisham El Garouj, Nuruddin Musali, and all of these athletes performing at a very high level. But these days, it does appear that other nations are, stepping up.
Yep.
Especially in Eastern Europe, they are taking the long distances races very seriously. And these days, because athletes are able to switch nations, the Arabian countries are pulling the Kenyan talents. Some European nations are pulling African talents as well. So if you look at Holland, for example, they've been able to pull a few athletes from Ethiopia to compete for them. Bahrain, Qatar, and Co have pulled a few athletes from Kenya as well. So what we can do is to push hard. These days, it's nice to see that there are a lot of performance enhancing centers. So for example, if you go to Senegal, there's a performance enhancing center there. If you go to Mauritius, there's a performance enhancing center there, just to get African athletes compete at a very high level. Because if it's just about raw talent is not enough. You need to take that skill set to another level to compete against the very best in the world.
To compete against the very best in the world. And ironically, whilst you're saying that, I'm watching across the field, and I just seen two of our former national athletes just walk across the field. I've seen Madame Stella Sedami. She used to be the national high jump champion back in her day. She's a police officer. And then I've just seen the man we all call Jollof, Sam Aye. Sam Aye also ran for Ghana as well. And I've seen a couple of them all helping out here. I'm sure some were also supporting during the Africa Games as well. Right. And it's also interesting to see how these gentlemen and ladies have gotten attached to the young ones. Viewers, let's run you through some of the events we saw earlier today. This was the 100-meter heats for women. Again, Nigeria showing clear superiority and dominance in that regard. And the Nigerians have come with a very strong team. The intentions are very clear. This was made to us by one of their coaches, especially when we met them yesterday at the venue here when they were going through their registration processes. So again, the Nigerians have shown that yes, there's a reason why we're here, and we want to show clear dominance in everything we do. So from the 100 meters, it was clear that all eyes will be on the Nigerians. They got a little bit of a backup push from the Ghanaians as well. As every time the Nigerians pick up the first place, the Ghanaians will end up either in the second or in the third position.
This is all the heats.
Sure. That's the heat, and one of the heats, I think it was the first heat that was run, and clearly it was obvious that the Nigerians in pole position from start to finish. The Ghanaian on the outer lane gave a hot chase, ended up second. But obviously the Nigerians have showed that the class is there. But again, Kwame, let's take a look also at the kind of new possibilities that are coming up. Back in the day, sprinting was more of a Nigeria, Ghana kind of affair. Now we're seeing the Senegalese coming in strong. We're seeing the Liberians also coming in strong. We've seen some notable changes. The East Africans are noted for the long distance. Now they're doing well in the sprint.
Yes.
What seems to be the change, in your opinion?
To be honest, it's very difficult to tell what has changed, because just like you said, the Nigerians were the dominant force when it came to sprints on the continent. So again, they have a long list of athletes from the past, male or female. So for the female, I recall Mary Onyali competed at a very high level for many years, and then Blessing Okagbari as well. I mean, these days we have the Tobia Muzant and co. In the men is a long list.
That's a long list.
Davidson is Zinwa, Osborne is Zinwa, Francis Obikwelu, all of these guys. And they were dominating. Then they had, probably at the time, they had only Frankie Fredericks to deal with from Namibia. And then there were also a long list of Ghanaians, Emmanuel Tufo, Nelson Boateng, then later Abdulaziz Zakari, Abu Dia, Christian Insia, and all of these things. But you look at some other nations who have burst onto the scene, like the athletes from Botswana these days, like the athletes from Kenya, Omanyala. You don't see a Kenyan that stocky, that bulky, who is good enough for the sprints. You barely see that. But these days it's happening. Even South Africa, they have Akani Simbini, who has been competing at a very high level on the continent for the last 5 or 6 years. I saw him at the World University Games about 5-6 years ago, and he's competing with the very best. Botswana, for example. I mean, who would have thought that a small country like Botswana, it's one of the biggest countries in terms of land size, but in terms of population, it's very small. They are doing it. The African champion 2 months ago on this same surface was a Cameroonian who won in the men's 100 meters final. The African champion for the ladies was Gina Bass. Gina Bass is from Gambia, and she won both in the 100 and in the 200 meters as well. So you're asking yourself, how is this literally moving from the powerhouses to the relatively unknowns? What is it that they are doing? So I remember I spoke to Gina Bass at the African Games, and she said Gambia has next to nothing. It's pretty much about her. I mean, Gambia doesn't have any official track of note. They have only one recognizable stadia for anything. So she's been literally training on her own and looking out for opportunities. I remember years ago, I met this lady, Marie Jose Talu, the Ivorian. She's now in America now. I think she's got some more opportunities there. I met her in Cape Coast, and she was telling me of even athletics in Ivory Coast not being what it really is, and she had to literally fight her way till she got to the very top. So now it is not just the athletes themselves. I also see that federations in these local spaces are also trying to do their own thing to put their names on the map. But for the medals Gina Bass won, who would have heard of Gambia at the African Games? You know.
True. And it looks like it's brought a lot more positivity, in my humble opinion, especially when it comes to developing athletics, because then the realization is that there are countries out there who can almost always pose a threat when they get the right opportunities.
Exactly. And let's face it, in a part of the world, unfortunately, it is not only a Ghana thing. It does appear that when you go to various countries in Africa, it is football and the rest. because obviously football is a dominant sport on the continent.
True.
So what you will notice is that in a lot of these countries, there is very little money that goes into other sporting disciplines. Very little money.
Yep.
Here in Ghana, for example, I have no idea what the athletics budget is. I have no idea. So you can imagine, even for countries like Ghana, so mention countries like maybe Liberia and some of these nations that you see, how much goes into, let's say, athletics in their local countries? Probably not much. So if it's not really up to you, the athletes, I just don't see how you're going to break through and get to the very high levels of the sport. I just don't see it.
Well, athletics, for those of you who may not have seen athletics on the screens for a while, clearly these are some of the reasons why, as enumerated by my guest. Obviously, we're not paying a lot more attention to the sport, a sport that really had put Ghana on the map. You know, and when you mention names of those who've risen to the very highest level, I mean, when it comes to Ghana, we have a couple of people there, as we've had the Nigerians, as we've had others. But then again, the revival should start from a base. And I feel that the Ghana Athletics Association doing very well in terms of elevating the levels of not only the athletes, but thankfully we have the University of Ghana Stadium. It's the latest facility that we have here in this country, and it should be beneficial to, you know, young and budding athletes such as what we've seen. It's the first time in this country that we've had a warm-up track that is closer to a stadium for a major competition. I am hoping that this will be the humble beginning that athletics can make. But Kwame, I've been here 2 or 3 times just to help with setup and get ready for this competition, and I see students training at the warm-up track, and I see potential.
The potential is always there, but you need someone to take them to the next level. I don't have an idea what the various organizations have. I mean, growing up as a child, one of the things that I easily saw was that there were coaches who were coming in from the National College in Winneba to train athletes in multiple sporting disciplines. I mean, anything you can think of, from tennis to whatever. These days, I don't know what the program is like, and I don't know if we are training enough coaches to come from the University College of Education in Winneba as well.
Good question.
So that when you go to the various secondary schools, we used to have sports masters. Today, I don't really see much beyond maybe the Ashanti region, maybe to an extent the Central region and the Greater Accra region. The other regions, I don't really know of training programs and all of that. The point I'm trying to make is that talent would always be at the base, but you need someone to shape the talent, hone the talent. You need them to compete in meets like this. You need them to test themselves against athletes from other schools and get to improve with their times, their dieting, their quality over time, and all of that. But with next to nothing happening, for example, in a whole year in the regions is what? Zonals and super zonals. And then maybe there's a national championship.
Yeah.
So 3 events the whole year, done.
Is that enough?
Surely that cannot be enough. Surely. I see the Ghana Athletics Association trying to organize a thing or two, but it's going to boil down to money. Again, I don't know where they get their money for these meets. I know every now and then they get a sponsor or two, but I'm sure the Athletics Federation would love to do more than what they do. But if the funding is not readily available, we know that for the sports budget that is read in Parliament every year, for example, God knows how much goes into football, and then the rest would go into whatever. So if the rest is going into whatever, then obviously you're not going to be getting much, from coaching to even testing. How is it that the whole Ghana, this is the only one we have in terms of an international standard tartan track? So what is going to happen is that over time, then there's a lot of pressure on this. And if we are not able to maintain this, then that's another, challenge to deal with going forward. And for me, if these little concerns can be addressed, who knows what we can get in the next 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, thereabouts.
Tall order it will be, but again, the strides are being made, and thankfully it's Ghana's turn to host the rest of Africa in terms of Region 2 when it comes to Seniors Athletics Championship, CAA. Region 2 competition right here in Ghana. These athletes now have the opportunity, and I'm sure that they're taking it 2 or 3-fold, not only to see whether they can make their grade for the Olympic Games, but also to make an announcement. And the announcement should be made fair and square. We need to see a lot of these athletes, especially on the African terrain, participating in competitions. And the more the competitions they competing or performing, the greater it is in terms of their chances to make it to the next stage.
And they get exposed as well.
Exactly.
I mean, you cannot be what we say here, a local champion, and you barely get opportunities anywhere else. If you're competing here in Ghana and you're not testing yourself even within the West African sub-region, or you're not testing yourself continentally, how do you get the opportunity to test yourself against the very best in the world?
Exactly.
Because before you get to compete against the very best in the world, you don't just get in, you need to make qualifying times. So if you're not doing too well at the local level or at the sub-regional level, then the opportunity to even compete at a very high level would not be there. As we speak, for example, for all that we celebrated about someone like Joe Paul Amoa winning the men's 200, he still hasn't qualified for Paris yet. Individually, we only have the 4x100 meters team qualifying to compete in Paris. But individually, have they been able to qualify? Not at this point. And with the relays here, we know everything is possible.
Yes.
But even there, the more they compete against the very best in the world, they get their experience. If they're not competing against the very best in the world, they won't get their experience. So they are coming up against the Americans, the Jamaicans, the French, the Canadians, and over time they would pick a thing or two. But if you're only competing with maybe somewhere in the sub-region or probably just on the continent alone, that would not give them the experience to compete at a very high level.
Tough times, but of course there's almost always a way out. Viewers, we're still bringing you highlights of races that were run earlier today. What we're witnessing now is the women's 400 meters. This was one of the tougher of the races where Bridget Annan did well to come in second again behind the fast Nigerians. This race was won by Joseph Esther. And again, you take a look at the kind of technique that we're seeing. Basic techniques, yes, they all have. But again, the ones that are a little bit exposed in terms of availability of competitions that they have to go through clearly shows when they get into the tracks and then they get into the emotion and then they get into the stride. The 400 meters for men, another of those tough encounters. In the second heat, for example, Ghana came in second. But again, as Kwame Jumo rightly said, we're looking forward to when they really hit the finals, where they move into that top gear and then get themselves straight into the competition itself. 400 meters has the top three places to go through, plus the two next fastest times. They advance to the next stage of the competition. So at least Ghana will still be in there in the 400 meters for both men and women. We saw their participation, talking about the women, in the 100 meters, and it looked good. We saw Dontera Grace also showing her flair and her skill, making it through after she came in behind the Nigerians. For the Nigerians, the sprints seem to be their dominant pact, as it were. And all the races that we've seen here, men, women, it looks like the dominance is there. First positions throughout. That's Sikiru Adeyemi, who also won his race earlier on. We're still waiting for the next track event, probably before we do the morning break. And earlier on, again, we had the discus competition where we saw some quality throws from some of the athletes in the competition. Not the kind of throws that you would want to see as a dominant one when it comes to moving forward, but at least the competition was healthy enough as well when it all began in that discus competition. And so clearly, from the little that we have seen this morning in the morning section or the morning session of the competition, it looks pretty good, and we're hoping that the afternoon, which may come with a few finals, but for tomorrow, where we'll be wrapping everything up with most of the final events, we should see the best come out of the athletes, as it were. You spoke about development of the sport. I've been to the development center in Senegal, set up by the IAAF, and the kind of quality that it has generated, and history has it that, I mean, once you've got the facility, like you rightly said, and the availability of competitions, you definitely will go there. Let's take Ghana as a case study. Ghana Athletics Association has done what it can. It's been able to attract itself or avail itself to some levels of competition, especially across the West Coast. We've had some of our athletes participating in La Côte d'Ivoire, as a few of them have gone to Nigeria to also participate. But again, how often should these athletes have the availability of competitions at their disposal? So much so that it is easy to snap up a budding or an up-and-coming or a shining talent when you may not even have seen him but may have heard about him.
Well, again, it depends on, you know, the programs that have been lined up by these various federations. I mean, what I recall in the past was that, for example, we had quite a number of our athletes in the security agencies.
Yes.
So whether it was fire service, prisons, police, the military proper, they were full-time staff of these security organizations. And then as and when we needed them for a thing or two, I mean, they were given some opportunity to go and train and prepare themselves and test themselves and all of that. And I do recall that in those days, there were a fair bit of athletics events that were held. I mean, if my memory serves me right, as early as 1994, I was at Accra Sports Stadium to watch the mobile games. And in those days, you would have the guys who were, because in those days we had the old school system, the guys who were in upper six, lower six, who were fairly old enough before they even got to the university competing. Then you had the guys from the security agencies. Then you had also some of these same students who were lucky enough to have gotten scholarships to school abroad, to go and school and then study and also get opportunity to compete as well. So I remember I saw someone like Solomon Amegache there for the very first time. And then there was this guy from Achimota School. His name was Jonathan C. And then I remember I saw another guy. His name was Patrick Prempe Amiao. They were schooling and, if you like, pretty much having a career or trying to make a career out of this.
Yeah.
And they had the opportunity to compete at multiple events. So in those days, beyond the zonals, super zonals, there was the mobile games, and there were a few other things, if my memory serves me right. Today, like I said, for the senior high school level, beyond the zonals, the super zonals, and then maybe the regional championships, it looks like that's it for the whole year. I don't know whether it's an issue of money. I don't know, because organizing things like this will come with some money, accommodation, funding, some medals here and there. So maybe until we find ourselves in a position where some funding is made readily available for a lot more events to be held and for athletes to test themselves regularly. Because, for example, if you are playing football and you are playing even as an amateur, you are playing a number of games over a relatively decent period.
Yeah.
But if you're not competing, and with these athletes, for example, let's say maybe the whole year, the only events that is readily available is, let's say, the African Games. And then beyond the African Games, what? If there are no games for them to competing, what do? They go back to school, go back to work, what?
Good enough, you mentioned the good old days when we had mobile, supporting athletics. And athletics was rife by then. And the rivalry was there.
It was big.
The good old days when you could have a meet and either the Accra or Kumasi Stadium was half full. People just came to watch the rivalries that went onto the field. For example, there was a lady called Mercy Addy. She always had that rivalry with Cynthia Quarty. So that was Shawa and C Quarty back in those days.
I think she was from Hot Cast also.
She may have been.
Yeah,
she may have
I
been.
remember something like that.
Yes.
Because
but
in
the
those
rivalry
days,
was there.
And in those days, for those who may not have known, the Accra Sports Stadium used to have a track before what we saw for CAN 2018 and everything. So it wasn't just a school's event thing. Anytime you went to the stadium, there were athletes who were doing something, whether they were training on their own or something. But unfortunately today, there's nothing at Accra. LWAC, I don't even want to discuss it. So,
you see,
thank God for this. Or else there would have been nothing in Accra.
That's true.
Thank God for this.
You're right.
Even in Kumasi, every now and then the tracks are tired. In Cape Coast, so if you, for example, if you go to Sunyai, I don't know where they do their events. If you go to Tamale, the Ali Mahama Sports Stadium maybe is a rescue. In Wa, I don't know. In Boga, I don't know.
Are all going.
In Ho, I don't know. In the Oti region, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm sure it's also one of the reasons why we can't get any more mobile quote and unquote companies wanting to support athletics.
Because the buzz is not
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I tell you what, those days, like I was saying, 100 meters final, if it is not Sequote, it is shower. 200 meters final, if it is not shower, it is Sequote.
Yeah.
400 meter final, and it went on. The men also had theirs. I just saw Samuel Aye of Ghana Immigration Service just pass by. He was battling with the likes of Agbokicha, the likes of Babylonia Senior, the likes of Akojiram. It was there. For those who were coming to the Accra Stadium, for example, to watch athletics and loved to sit at the Osu stand, they only sat at the Osu stand because there's going to be a battle between Timothy Hesse and Solomon Amegache. You know, but where is that rivalry now? From Kumasi, out of nowhere, we had a certain Emmanuel Tufor.
Yeah.
He also burst onto the scene. The ladies there was one particular lady who was almost always dominant in 100-meter hurdles, Dinah Yankee.
Yeah, I heard the name. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you compare those days to what
To
we
now,
have now, we obviously have that lull. We obviously have that break. But I'm sure for you and I, what we want to see is, yes, bring back that rivalry, bring back the athletes who have shown the potential.
Yeah.
But for officialdom, bring back events that can keep them active and flowing and running. You talked about Jose Talu. Muriel Ahure, her case is even different. But these are athletes who have gone
Ahure
through...
is another Ivorian.
Another Ivorian. But these are athletes who have struggled and tried to maintain a certain level of competition. So if you listen to the Jamaicans, they tell you that every time they get into the track, their threat is the athletes from Africa, because they know that they've got the talent, they've got the raw ability, and they can push them to the wall. I think where we fall short is the fact that when we get into that bigger atmosphere, then that our dominance dims, and then the pressure and the noise and everything takes over. So you almost always have African athletes falling short where it matters most.
I'm seeing something on the screen in line with the conversation we're just having.
Sure.
If you go to the Worlds or at a very high level, this gentleman competing for the Ivorians will probably not cut it. 1, look at the technique. 2, look at the body size. The guys who are into shot puts are 3 times his weight.
Sure.
What that means is that they are in a position to offload
The putt.
the putt at a reasonable distance. So because of his body size and because he's probably not skilled enough with the technique, he can only throw just a few meters. In the past, I recall there's a disgraced American hunter, CJ Hunter, and his people, the former husband of Marianne Jones.
Sure.
They are 3 times the size of this gentleman
They are
who is going to be
bulky.
and very bulky. And they're able to offload the putt a lot strongly. With this, it won't cut. So you're asking yourself, okay, who is even behind this? Can he take part in another sporting discipline? Is he cut out enough to compete with the sport? If he qualifies even from here, can he compete beyond Africa? So he would also be an also run. He wouldn't be able to. So, for example, the Jamaicans are not bothered about 1,500 meters. They know that their skill set is limited to the sprints and then, to a large extent, the hurdles. End of story.
Okay. All right. Well, we're still bringing you live action from the University of Ghana Stadium. It is the Confederation of African Athletics Africa Seniors Championship for Region 2. We will do a very quick break, and viewers, do stay with us, because when we come back, there will be a lot more events to share with you as we build up the crescendo towards tomorrow, where we'll have most of the epic finals. We'll be back in a minute. Do stay with us. trying to find out whether they will do the 4x100 because in Hakeshi they are engineers. That might be director. Hakeshi. Why is the other team on break and we are not on break?